Welcome to Defence Connect's The Progress Report, the show spotlighting the women shaping Australia's defence and national security.
Welcome to Defence Connect's Progress Report, the podcast where we explore the stories, careers and experiences of women working across Australia's defence and national security sectors. I'm your host, Tash Taylor, and in each episode I'm sitting down with industry professionals to talk about their journeys, personal growth and mentorship, and what it really takes to build a meaningful career in one of the country's most complex and essential industries. My amazing guest today is Olivia Agate, the incredible founder and president of the Women's Defence Connection and HRBP for the lovely Navantia, Australia. So thank you so much, Olivia, for being on the show this week.
Thank you. Absolute honour to be here.
Look, it's my honour to have you on here. And I was just saying to Olivia, she is one of my first guests. And there is a reason that she is one of my first guests. I recently went to my first Avalon air show, and obviously that was, I've been to land forces and a few of those before, but that one was a loud one, a fun one, very cool experience. But when I was walking through the big halls, Women's Defence Connection was one of the booths that popped up that I had not seen before and drew me in. And instantly I knew that I wanted to chat with the beautiful women there, and Olivia would be a fantastic first one of my guests straight off the bat.
I love that. And yeah, it was quite a standout stand, as if I think it was the only one in the entire expo that was pink.
Yes, that's why it caught my eye.
Pink and polka dotty. But because we wanted it to be inviting for women, and we wanted it to be a safe space for women to come in. And yeah, it's fantastic that you found us through Avalon, because I think for us that was such a turning point, because, you know, until that point, we'd been this sort of community within Victoria, but it sort of gave us a bit more of a national presence. But it also started a lot of conversations which were really meaningful for us, and helped us to, I guess, what is helping us to pave out the next sort of few years for WDC. So yeah, I love that you found us that way.
No, I think it's fantastic. And, you know, it's something just before we actually started recording for everyone that's listening is that Olivia said that men actually started coming up to you, which I think is really interesting. So can you elaborate a little more about that? Because I found that super interesting.
Yeah, so you would expect with a stand like that to predominantly have women come up, and we certainly did. We had lots of women coming up to us wanting to know what it was about and how they could get involved, and people wanting to sponsor and that kind of stuff. But one of the really most interesting things for me was a number of men approaching us saying, look, I've got, I'm running a business. I don't have any women in my business. How do I, A, get the women in? And B, retain them and look after them. And so for us, that was such an amazing opportunity to talk about what that looks like and what that could look like for their businesses. So yeah, that was really encouraging, because we obviously want allyship, and we want everyone to be on board with our slogan is to change the face of defence industry, and we
I love that.
It's not just us that is doing that. We want everyone to be on board and collaborating in that mission. So yeah, it was really encouraging. It was really, amazing.
Oh, that's fantastic. And look, you hit the nail on the head there. I think it is all about allyship at the end of the day. And also, I guess off the back of that as well, I mean, obviously workforce is one of the biggest issues facing defence right now. And, we want to be getting everyone in, and we want everyone from men to women. But also, if we want to keep amazing talent, amazing women in the industry, I think it's fantastic to see men going out of their way to come up to you, get the expert knowledge on how do I make my workplace more appealing to actually get this amazing talent.
Yeah, because I think knowledge is power. And I think that what I've found in this whole journey with WDC is that we haven't had any pushback from any male or female. Everyone is on board with the mission. Everyone's on board with what we're trying to achieve. but a lot of it is lack of education as to how. And so I think actually it takes, both genders to understand that. And it's, it's our responsibility as women to communicate that to men so that they're on board with it, and vice versa, and for males to listen. So, definitely an education piece, which I think is getting more and more traction, more and more exposure as the years go on. And even in, WDC has been around since, officially since October 2023. And even in that short time, how it's grown, and none of us expected it to get quite as popular as it did in quite a short period of time, but it's because everyone wants it. But WDC, I guess, are being the channel that are actually, doing the work to make it happen, and everyone's just there go on type thing. So
absolutely.
It's great.
Look, how many women are actually involved now in Women's Defence Connection?
Oof, you know what? So I say it officially started in October 2023. I reckon the story began, though, at the beginning of 2023 in April. WDC got created because 6 women decided to go for coffee together. 6 women sat for an hour in the Rialto in Melbourne having coffee. We all thought it was great. It was all from different companies as well. So we decided, let's do it again. Then the coffee turned into a wine, and there was 7 or 8. Yeah, there was 7 or 8 of us, and I've still got the pictures. And then we did it again, and then suddenly there were these people that were there, and they were champions, and this very organically. And this is one of the things I love about WDC. It was very organic. These champions sort of turned into the committee, and then we all come from different backgrounds, different skill sets, different levels, different industries, few from manufacturing. And so to answer your question, the committee established as 7, it's now 9. The membership, we have over 1,000 followers on our LinkedIn page. We're currently in the midst
fabulous.
I'm that was a goal for us this year, and it's halfway through the year and we got it, so that was great. And then look, we've created numerous events since October 23. The highest has been 120. We do lots of casual events as well, and you'd expect probably around sort of 20 to 30 in attendance to those. So we're about to establish our website. It's actually
exciting. When's that going to launch?
It's there. It's being built. You can go on it, but once that sort of gets officially done, we'll start having to track the full membership. But the committee, we all have full-time jobs. Some of us are general managers, and program directors and all that kind of stuff.
I'm sure mums on the side. And
mothers, all of it. So
juggling it all, jack of all trades.
So it's a little, for us, it's wanting to grow organically and at the pace that we're comfortable with. So it will happen soon. Can't give a date. But it's really exciting.
I think it's beautiful that it literally just came out of such an amazing idea out of getting a coffee, and then let's get a wine and let's have a chat. It's just organic, isn't it?
That's one of the things, like I say, that is so beautiful about WDC is that we've never really had to force the issue. We've never had to struggle to get people along. We've never had to do anything. We just sort of, we're here. And we want to be part of a community of women in defence industry. And if you want to be part of it too, then come along. And they did. And now, the network is, for me, and I can only talk from my own experience, but the network for me is invaluable. If I need something from, so many different companies, so many different skill sets, if I need help with something, if we, from a Navantia Australia perspective, which is my company, but also from any other hat that I'm wearing, WDC has the network. So if you want to be part of that network, you have those connections as well, and it's what it's all about. It's what we love it.
I think it's incredible just to have such an amazing network, because it does so go beyond just talking work day in, day out. You're making friendships, you're meeting women within the industry. And also I think that's something that I've learned now from talking to so many women is I went into defence not knowing a clue about it.
Yeah.
And, you think that you're on the back foot with that because you think that everyone knows everything in the space. I remember even acronyms were freaking me out. There's an acronym for bloody everything in defence. So I just think that, and then I just assumed that everyone was across every industry, But then you meet people and, someone might be working from maritime, but they don't have a clue about, the aerospace sector.
Yeah.
And I think
absolutely.
that's... And once I learned that, it made me feel a bit better. But I think something like that, you're going to end up inevitably growing your knowledge about so many areas within this industry just by having a chat over a glass of rosé,
Is that your choice?
That's absolutely my choice. Guilty.
I'm a red. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I guess, for me, I've worked in defence recruitment in the UK and Australia for, I think it was like 14 years, mainly in Australia. And being in sales and recruitment, you have to have a network in order to do that job. And I learned so much in that space, but it wasn't until coming and creating WDC and building that extra network that I really felt like it took off. So it's been really good in that sense as well. I've loved it. I've loved creating it. I've loved everyone that I've met in it. And you're right, the relationships that you have in WDC are more than what, you go to work for. We're all there because we want to be there, because we want that connection and we want to feel like we have a sense of belonging in our industry. And sometimes it can be a little bit hard to do that in a male-dominated environment, but you come to WDC and you have that. And, for me, that's what drives me. That's creating a space that women can come and feel like they belong. It's in our human instinct and to want to feel that. And it's great that WDC can do that and everyone else that creates those spaces for those minorities. So, it's great.
I think you hit the nail on the head there with, it's so many women. I'd say almost all the women in this industry would have the experience of being the only woman in the room, and that can be daunting. You walk into something like land forces for my first time and, you're a girl in your early 20s and I was wearing a pink suit and I was like,
could not relate more.
My God, what have I just walked into? And it's daunting and it is scary, but it's so nice to then be able to find yourselves in initiative like Women's Defence Connection, because then it's nice to be like, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of us and we can all understand, the feelings of imposter syndrome and things like that inevitably kind of creep up on you in those sort of scenarios.
And there's so much that you've said in that I relate to. And I think even you mentioned the pink suit, right? We did a breakfast meeting in conjunction with land forces. It was fantastic, and it was 6 a.m. in the morning and I've turned up in a rainbow dress. But I was like, why would I not turn up in a rainbow dress? It's WDC.
Exactly.
It's not I always find that you can always go a bit more loud and be a bit more authentic when you're in that space than when it's sort of more corporate. And I love the men in our industry. I love
absolutely
so many fantastic people that I've learned off, so many fantastic people that do an amazing job. But it is nice to just have that as well.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I must say that, in the commercial side as well, most of the people in our office are sort of men, and most of them, most of my mentors I've actually had have been men, and they're all amazing people. I've met so many women and men in this industry that are so, and I must say this, are so passionate about what they do, which is just beautiful. But it is nice, to be able to find some other women just to be able to chat with, because they understand, they get it a bit more so sometimes than some men in your field.
Absolutely.
And look, I would actually be really interested to know, are there any sort of standout stories of women that now are part of Women's Defence Connection, whether they've, who've built their careers, won new networks, or simply even just found a sense of belonging in the industry? Because I imagine there is a lot of powerful moments that don't actually make it to LinkedIn. So I know I stole that line from you, but I'd love to know.
Loads. And I think, again, it's the stories and that like bit of encouragement that that really keep us going in WDC. I just remember one of the first ones we did was, I think it was like for Indo-Pacific.
Oh, yep.
Last time that was on. And we did like a prep for Indo-Pacific, and a couple of the committee came up and spoke, and there was this moment that was actually like irrelevant to Indo-Pacific. I don't really know why I just mentioned it. But one of the women there just sat there and was like, I'm so grateful that I have this space. Like, you have no idea how much this means to me. And I remember standing there being like, oh, like, not I was in like weird, but kind of like a little bit like, wow, that's really meaningful. And then it grows, right? Like we've got a lady who told a story about how she came to our International Women's Day last year, and one of the amazing women in our industry spoke there, and it was one of the speakers that basically inspired her. She just she was in a good job, but she felt like she could do more and wasn't quite getting it, and basically decided to make the move and move into a higher role in a different company, and like is thriving now. So that was another amazing story. We've got stories of collaboration. So, a lady who is in not really a defense company, but they're trying to get into defense, and she's just won a piece of work with another lady in the network who works in defense. So there's like collaboration across companies, and it was all from the connection of WDC. And even like the I guess the sort of giving each other a bit of a knee up and a little bit of encouragement. Like one of our committee members is actually shortlisted for an award with Defence Connect tonight in the Security and Workforce Awards. I think it's
fingers crossed.
But that was the committee being like, you need to go for that, and we'll help you with your application, and we'll write a recommendation and all of this kind of stuff.
Oh my God, I love that.
And it doesn't even matter if she doesn't win. Like it's like just that that sort of bit of encouragement that helps her shine in her career, because like for me, I think she's awesome. Like, and I wanted her on the committee because she's awesome, and so it's nice that she can have that moment as well of recognition outside of what we do in WDC. So they're like three of many.
No, look, actually, I have a question around that. So these type of initiatives, whether it is some of our awards or there's other amazing, publications and whatnot that do their own, there's quite a few in the sphere. But why do you think it is that some women are holding themselves back from actually getting involved? Do you think it is a level of imposter syndrome? Do you think it's fear of standing out? And how do you think that we can actually shift that sort of conversation, get people more involved in these type of things?
Absolutely. So I think that, I think as women, firstly, if there is someone that that is a woman who you think is awesome, like firstly, tell her. And also, if there is an opportunity to make that person shine more, like take it. Like we need to be pulling each other up. And we need to be giving the nod. If there's something that we think that a woman would be really good for, maybe a higher ranking role or something in industry focused, like I would highly encourage any woman to give a nod to others. And I learned that from people that I know in the WDC network. Why they don't? So my understanding and my experience, you talk about imposter syndrome, and I think, historically we all talk about how it's a male-dominated industry, and I guess that narrative still probably ticks away in women's minds. But to be like, from when I first joined defence industry in Australia 10 years ago to what it is now, we are making strides. We're not there, but we are making strides, and it feels so much more inclusive than it ever did. Like I've been that woman who's been, luckily I had a mate with me, like colleague, but she's also a really good friend. And we were in it together. And we were rugby players, right? So we could also like talk a bit of talk that wasn't about, predominantly women stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel it, like, and if it wasn't for her, it would feel even really scary.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that's the case anymore. Like, especially on that networking side, there's, WDC have collaborated with other sort of defence networking events, and I guess we create our space and we go together. And I guess that's that encouragement of giving each other the nod type thing, and giving each other a sort of pat on the back to come along. But I do think I think I think the narrative is still there of imposter syndrome, and it's a male dominated world. But then, and maybe not a lot of what we do. Not what we do. A lot of what we hear is around confidence and how do I become more confident. We did a networking workshop last year on that, and it was sort of building, how you build your confidence within your network. And part of that was you actually have quite a strong network, like utilize it type thing. You don't have to go out and put your vulnerable self out there the entire time. Like you do have a network already, and knowing that in itself builds confidence as well is one of the things that I learned from that. But again, like confidence, imposter syndrome, lack of female leadership. So there's not really like a visual for our generation to see where we're going. But I am confident, and I am, I do have a lot of hope that as sort of us as females in grow in our careers, that will hopefully change. And like I say, I think everyone's on the same page of that. They would be sort of the main barriers and what have you. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And look, I honestly would agree with everything you've just sort of said. One thing that I do find really interesting that you just noted on as well is that we all have networks already. But how is it that we can best actually leverage that? How do you tap into that effectively?
Yeah. I'll go back to my training of the workshop we did last year. There was a beautiful lady called Susie Finkelstein did the workshop, and if anyone knows of her, she's awesome, and please reach out to her. But she essentially did an exercise with us where we actually mapped it out. So everyone sat there and they mapped out, who do I have in my network? Who's a leader? Who's one of my champions? Who's this? Who's that? And, if I want this, who do I go to? And and I remember doing mine, and, a lot of them were women, but a lot of them were men as well. And it was kind of, I think that was a really good first step. Yeah. And then it was sort of like, how can you engage that person? If I want a promotion, who would I speak to help me mentor me, and then help me to get to that next step? So yeah, the network can be as simple as your teammates and your manager, and someone in your company that, a lot of my, I work for Navantia Australia as my full-time job, and a lot of my network was Navantia Australia employees, whether they were my managers or whether they were my colleagues. So I think it's like changing the perspective a little bit as well, because I think a lot of people think, well, I don't go to the networking events and I don't go to WDC or whatever, so I don't have a network. And it's like, you do, you just don't quite realise it. Well, I didn't anyway.
Honestly, I can relate to that so much, especially at the moment, because with building this podcast, a lot of it is to get guests on it, you have to leverage your network and who you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's something initially, it is a bit daunting. I was like, where do I start? Who do I go to first? And lucky enough, the Defence Connect team here are absolutely amazing. So shout out to all of the amazing journos, Rob, Steve and Liam, and also Andy and Will, who are also in the team. So I'm the lucky one lady of the team, but I've got all these amazing men that are supporting me, and they have amazing connections all throughout this industry.
The most connected.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, Defence Connect. We are the most connected in the industry. And look, I've been lucky enough that they've been throwing names my way, and helping me to build that out. But like you said, I think a great idea for me off the back of this as well is just going to be going through people I have connections with, figuring out, okay, who's the best place then to discuss this with, and sort of how to leverage those.
And hey, you have the WDC
exactly.
connection network as well now. So just
exactly,
it's all like 2 or 3 degrees of separation.
It is. It absolutely is.
I know there's been a lot of my career has been shaped around that, like who do I know, who knows that person, and how can they get me to where I need to be, type thing, which is great.
Yeah, and it's great to have people like that can help you sort of progress in that way.
And I think defence is quite a close-knit community in itself. So it's not just like that you have the network, it's that the network want to help you, and they want you to do well and what have you. So I think that is a really good thing about defence.
I would agree. And I guess in saying that, why do you think collaboration and allyship are just so essential? I mean, is it other than just building those, relationship building, beautiful, because it's going to help you build that network, but I guess it does go beyond that.
I just think like,
I know it's a loaded question, isn't it? It's a big one.
Particularly, I mean, allyship, I believe, like, we can't change the culture of our industry without the allyship of our male friends. And I said it at the start, like, and it's there. Like, sometimes there is a lack of education, but I know so many amazing men in our industry that want this to work, like, type thing. So allyship is integral, and I think there's an education piece there. But I've got no doubt that will wash over the industry. Collaboration, like WDC does not exist without collaboration. Like, and it's collaborating from the women that sit in the committee, the champions outside in the group. We have a lot of women that are quite consistent in what we do. But even outside of WDC as a network, we collaborate with TFTC, the Future Through Collaboration. They're a female mentoring program, and we did the workshop with them. That partnership has been opened up the network even wider. And like we are in our core a networking space for women in defence industry, and that's what will remain being. But there are lots of women that want the mentorship. So why would we not go to the experts in TFTC, and the women can come and have that experience and then come back to WDC and we grow the community even more. And I think even collaborating with, people like Defence Connect and sharing the message, like, you guys are integral for what we're doing because you're giving us exposure. Like, we can't do this alone. Like, we can't change the face of defence industry, which is our mission, just us 9 women in the committee. Like, it takes a family, it takes an army, it takes a network.
It does. It takes a full army of people backing this to actually create that change. Yeah. But we can't do that without awesome, amazing women like yourself running such great programs that are backing women. What about yourself, though? Did you ever have a mentor then? Did you have someone that you really, really looked up to, whether it was in Navantia or whether it was, back home before you moved to Australia 11 years ago? Did you ever have a standout woman or even man, anyone in your life that you think really helped you, direct you to where you went today?
I mean, look, both. My, when I was studying, I went to university and I did a film studies degree. So if anyone wants to know about Spider-Man,
you're the girl to go
please come to me. But my point being, I had nothing to do with defence. I got a job in defence because I was applying for jobs after university, and a defence-specific recruitment agency rang me, and I thought they wanted me to be the admin person there, but they were like, "No, we want you to come and do recruitment." And then, fast forward a little bit, I'm working in a recruitment agency in Australia, and I'm learning about defence industry, right? And I I learned a lot about the network there. And in terms of mentors, you know, there was some great people in that organisation that taught me about defence in a nice, safe space where I wasn't going to go out there and look stupid.
Yeah.
So they were great. There was one lady there that is the founder and owner of TFTC. And she, for me, was amazing mentor. She was like an amazing manager. She had really good emotional intelligence, which I really value. And I think also in this like massive like male dominated world, she was, you know, a female that I could like lean into and everything. And, you know, it was actually her idea to create, off the back of TFTC, to create this community for women. Now, I ended up leaving the agency and I joined Navantia, and then, yeah, the mentorship and leadership just, you know, as you created the community, got even like bigger and bigger. So, you know, there were times in those early stages of WDC where like 7 people turn up that I was like, what's the point? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
But then I remember I went for coffee with a lady in industry who I looked up to and admired, and she was like, no, you've got to keep going. I love it. It's great. And I was just like, okay, all right, I'll keep going. And I think it was those moments, like those little moments that
makes such an
journey,
lasting impact.
That impacted me so much. I probably wouldn't have done another event if that woman hadn't told me to do another event. And then I guess once the committee was created, like we were just all each other's champions and like, you got this.
You go, girl.
Yeah. And then suddenly we started, you know, creating these amazing events, and then like the community got big. And I feel like I'm going off on a tangent a little bit here, but like I think it's hard to pinpoint one mentor or
yeah. No, I get that completely.
I think it's like a number of different ones, and even now in Navantia, Australia, like I think the fact that they you know, not even just sort of allow me to do WDC, but like fully support it and fully encourage, you know, like know that we're doing such a good thing. Like that's really encouraging for me. And so much so that we've created our own women's group within Navantia Australia as well, called For the Win, you know, and then what happens from that is like women come together and just create a space for women in our organisation. And off the back of that, they get, you know, inspired and they want to help WDC, and it all kind of, I know, it's just, I think it's just everyone has been an inspiration to me really from those sort of early days. And
yeah.
And I think the reason why I took it right back to the start was because like I'm not in STEM, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a veteran. I'm not even from Australia, if you haven't already established. But yet there's this kind of like community, and there's like defence industry has really held me. And I think, you know, there's a space for me here. Like I'm good at bringing people together, and I'm good at, you know, workforce and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, great, come on in. Like we've got work for you, like, and you can be part of this community. And I think that's a really, for me, that's really important. And I think that's a message that, I think I'd love to get as far and wide as we can for any woman. Like you don't have to be, I think there's always been a bit of a focus on, you know, veterans and women, and don't get me wrong, veterans and engineers and STEM, and don't get me wrong, they are like fundamental to what we do as an industry.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be in those roles as a woman to be part of our community. So
yeah, 100%. And I think that's, you know, one of the reasons we wanted to start this podcast as well was obviously we want to have some amazing, incredible women, and fingers crossed, stay tuned for some more episodes. But we want to have some awesome women who have been on, you know, been through the ADF and have some incredible stories, and even women that have transitioned through to industry. But also it is the awesome girls, women out there that have just been through, you know, just come through the industry. You don't have to have had that sort of Army, Navy, Air Force background to, you know, be part of this community. And I think, you know, that was something when I joined the team here as well was, oh gosh, like You know, I don't have a background in this. I am just a little salesperson that did journalism for a little bit as well. And I used to work in the finance team. So you just feel a little bit, you know, out of your...
But look at you now. Like, do you know what I mean? And now you're doing a podcast related to women.
Talking to awesome people like
got
you, Olivia.
this.
So I think it's, you know, that's amazing thing about this industry. And this podcast wouldn't have even happened if it wasn't for amazing women as well. Just, you know, saying go for it. Why not? Why don't we have an awesome space where we talk about these type of things?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think it's like, I'm going to go like a little bit recruitment now, but
go for it.
Like a lot of women will look at a job advert and be like, I don't hit every single point on that job description, so I'm not eligible for the role. So FYI, you are, and
yes,
and you should go for the role if it's interesting to you, because I believe that, you know, as someone who sits on the other side of that. Yeah, if you've got 80% of what we're looking for, trust me, you're in for a shot. And if you've got a good attitude and you want to do well, like, you're even more in for a shot. Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. And look, you know, at the end of each episode, I really want to ask. So based on everything we've discussed today, I would love to know one key insight or piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with. Because now I know it's going to be hard to summarize this with one sort of thing. We've gone on a few tangents here, but I think everything's been really meaningful. But if you sort of got one key insight or one piece of advice for people listening, what would you impart to everyone?
I would say, you know, that there is a space for every woman in defence industry. Obviously, if you're wanting to be a part of it. And willing to do the work. I would also say, like, say yes. So to every woman out there, like, if there's something that you don't know, you're not sure, like, say yes. And if you don't quite have the confidence yet, grab someone who's going to give you that sort of nudge in the right direction. A lot of the opportunity I've got in defence is because I've just said yes, including this podcast.
Thank you. Off the back of that, you know, I must say that Olivia is literally the first person I've had in studio with me, and you have been such an amazing guest to have because you've made me feel comfortable and you're the easiest person to talk to, I think, in the world.
Thank you. I will wear that as a badge of honour.
Exactly. Along with your other cute, awesome little Women in Defence connection. For anyone that is seeing the video, Olivia does have an awesome little pendant on her.
Yeah. When you can chat to me and I can send you one.
Exactly.
So you can be part of the tribe too.
Awesome. And look, unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. But thank you so much, Olivia.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. And look, catch us in 2 weeks' time for another episode of Defence Connect, the Progress Report.
Love it. Thank you so much.